Welcome, my family. Before we jump in, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. I would also love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop your answers and any suggestions in the comments, and I might give you a shout out at the end of my next video. Thanks for being here and for all your amazing support. When you're a kid at a sleepover, there's always one moment when the fun turns into something else. Something colder, something you can't laugh away. For me, that moment happened in my friend Ethan's house, the night we dared each other to go into the basement. It was late, maybe close to midnight. We had eaten too much pizza, played video games until our eyes hurt, and now we were just lying on the floor in our sleeping bags, bored and restless. Ethan's house was older than most on our street, with squeaky floors, drafty windows, and a basement that none of us liked going into. That basement was different. The door to it was at the back of the kitchen, a heavy wooden door with peeling paint. It always seemed colder there, even in summer. Whenever we went to grab snacks, we'd walk past it quickly, try not to look at the black gap where the door didn't quite fit into its frame. That night, as thunder rumbled outside and rain streaked down the windows, one of the boys, Liam, smirked and said, "Bet none of you have the guts to stay in the basement for 5 minutes." We all laughed, but no one jumped at the idea. We traded looks, waiting for someone else to speak first. Then Ethan, trying to look tough in his own house, said, "Fine, let's do it." One by one, 5 minutes each. My stomach tightened, but I wasn't going to be the coward. We drew straws with broken pretzel sticks. Of course, I pulled the shortest one. Ethan grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and handed it to me. 5 minutes, he said with a grin, though his voice wasn't as steady as he wanted it to be. The others gathered around the basement door as I slowly turned the handle. The hinges creaked. A cold draft slid up from below, smelling like dirt and something sour. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, showing only the top of the wooden stairs. "Go on," Liam urged. "We'll time you." My heart thumped. I forced my legs to move and stepped onto the stairs. The door closed behind me with a click that echoed too loudly. The basement swallowed me in silence. The stairs groaned under my weight as I crept down, gripping the flashlight so hard my knuckles ached. The light landed on cracked concrete floors and walls lined with old shelves. Rusted tools, jars of nails, and dusty boxes sat in crooked stacks. The air was damp, heavy like the walls had been sweating for years. I reached the bottom and tried to steady my breathing. "It's fine," I whispered to myself. "Just 5 minutes." For a while, I walked in small circles, shining the flashlight on random objects to keep busy. A cracked doll's head on a shelf, a bucket filled with chains, an old mirror leaning against the wall, its glass fogged with grime. Every sound seemed too loud. The scrape of my shoes, the drip of water from a pipe, the buzzing of the flashlight when I shook it. Then, from the far corner, I heard it. A shuffle. I froze, aiming the flashlight toward the sound. The beam lit up a stack of boxes, nothing else. The shuffle stopped. My skin prickled. "Probably a mouse," I whispered, but my voice sounded too small. I tried to keep calm. I checked the time on my watch. Only 2 minutes had passed. Then I noticed the mirror. The tall, dirty mirror leaning against the wall didn't just reflect me. It reflected part of the basement I couldn't see behind me. I lifted the flashlight higher, squinting at the glass. That's when I saw it. In the reflection, behind me, stood a figure. Tall, motionless, its face hidden in the dark. I spun around so fast I almost dropped the flashlight. The beam landed on empty concrete. No figure. Nothing there. I whipped back to the mirror. The figure was gone from the reflection too. My chest felt like it was closing in. I wanted to run up the stairs, but I could already hear Liam's voice mocking me in my head. Couldn't even last 5 minutes? I clenched my teeth and forced myself to stay. 3 more minutes, I whispered. But the basement wasn't done with me. The shuffle came again, louder this time. The boxes in the corner shifted, one tumbling onto the floor with a dull thud. I raised the flashlight with shaking hands, the beam jumping across the walls. And then I heard breathing. Not mine, not the sound of pipes. Deep, heavy breathing like someone standing just out of the light. "Who's there?" My voice cracked. The breathing grew louder. My flashlight flickered once, then steadied. I aimed it toward the shelves, toward the mirror, toward the far wall. Nothing. Then I felt it. A hand. Cold, dry, pressing against my back for the briefest second. I spun around, swinging the flashlight wildly. Empty air. No one there. That was enough. I bolted for the stairs, my shoes slapping against the concrete. The flashlight beam shook across the ceiling as I raced upward. I slammed against the door, yanking the handle until it flew open. The warm light of the kitchen poured over me. I stumbled out, gasping, and the others laughed nervously. "You lasted 4 minutes," Ethan said, showing me his watch. "Not even 5. I didn't care." I shoved the flashlight into his chest and muttered, "Your turn." One by one, they went down. Liam came back up after 2 minutes, claiming he heard whispers. Ethan lasted barely 3, saying he felt something touch his ankle. When his sister came into the kitchen to yell at us for making too much noise, we told her about the basement. She rolled her eyes and said, "That place creeps me out too." Then she went back upstairs without another word. We didn't dare each other again that night. We piled into the living room, turned every light on, and tried to laugh it off. But nobody really laughed. The next morning, sunlight filled the house, making everything look ordinary again. We almost convinced ourselves it had just been our imaginations. But as I packed my bag to leave, I passed the basement door one last time. It was closed, quiet. Then I noticed something. On the wood, just above the handle, were long, fresh scratches, like fingernails dragged across the paint. They hadn't been there the night before. I never stayed at Ethan's house again. None of us did. He told me later that his parents eventually had the basement sealed off because of moisture problems. But I've always wondered if that was the real reason. Because when I close my eyes, I can still feel that cold hand pressing against my back. And I know, deep down, that I wasn't alone down there. Some sleepovers are full of harmless pranks and staying up too late. Others leave you with a story you never want to tell in the dark. The night at my friend Nathan's house was one of those. It was winter break, and 4 of us were staying at Nathan's place. His parents set up blankets and sleeping bags in the upstairs game room. The room had a low ceiling, shelves stacked with board games, and a hallway just outside that led to the bedrooms. We spent most of the night playing video games, eating candy, and telling scary stories. Around midnight, we finally decided to sleep. The lights clicked off, the glow from the TV faded, and soon the room was filled with quiet breathing. At first, everything was normal. I was drifting in and out of dreams when a soft sound pulled me awake. A shuffle, like bare feet dragging across carpet. I sat up slowly, heart thumping. Across the room, the door to the hallway was open wider than before. A sliver of light from a night lamp shone through. And in that light, I saw Nathan. He was standing in the hallway, facing the wall, his head tilted at a strange angle, his arms hanging loose at his sides. At first, I thought he was awake, maybe going to the bathroom. But then I noticed something odd. He wasn't moving normally. His body swayed slightly, like a tree in a weak breeze. His lips moved, whispering words I couldn't hear. My throat went dry. I whispered, "Nathan." He didn't answer. He didn't even blink. I nudged one of the others, whispering louder. "Look, wake up. Look at him." By the time the others stirred, Nathan had started walking again. Slow steps, dragging, always facing the wall. He moved to the end of the hallway and stopped there, standing so still it made my stomach twist. Sleepwalking, one of the boys mumbled. My cousin does that sometimes. I wanted to believe that, but then I heard him. His whispers, not soft mumbles, not nonsense words. They were sharper now, clearer. I leaned forward, straining to hear. No, stop pulling, don't take me. His voice cracked like a child begging in a nightmare. Every hair on my arm stood on end. Should we wake him? I asked. The others shook their heads quickly. Everyone had heard the same warning. Never wake a sleepwalker. It could shock them, make them panic. So we just sat there, frozen, listening to Nathan whisper to the empty wall. Minutes dragged by. Then, suddenly, Nathan turned. For the first time, his face caught the dim glow of the night lamp. His eyes were open, wide open, but they didn't look at us. They looked past us, through us, as if staring at something we couldn't see. His mouth moved again, and this time the words were clear. He's in the room. My blood went cold. What did he just say? One of the boys whispered. Before I could answer, Nathan lifted his arm and pointed into the game room, directly at us. We scrambled back, bumping into sleeping bags and pillows. The air felt heavy, like the room had shrunk around us. Then, as suddenly as it started, Nathan dropped his arm. He turned back to the hallway wall and stood there in silence. After what felt like forever, his sister came out her bedroom. She was older, maybe 16, with messy hair and a sleepy scowl. What's going on? She muttered. We pointed at Nathan. She sighed like she had seen it before. He sleepwalks sometimes, she said. He'll go back to bed on his own. She took his hand gently and led him toward his room. He followed, stiff but obedient, never looking at us. When she shut his door, the silence that followed was worse than his whispers. We all lay back down, but none of us could sleep. Around 3 a.m, I opened my eyes again. The house was still. I almost let myself relax until I noticed something. The hallway door was open again, and Nathan was back. He stood in the doorway this time, not moving, not swaying, just standing there. His eyes were wide, glassy. His lips barely moved, but I could hear the words. He's closer now. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream for his sister, but the sound caught in my throat. The others were awake too. I could see it in their wide, terrified eyes. No one moved. Nathan stepped into the game room. One slow step, then another. His bare feet made no sound on the carpet. He stopped halfway across the room, his head snapping to the side as if listening to someone standing right next to him. No, please, he whispered. Then his eyes rolled back. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the floor. We jumped to our feet, shouting his name. His sister ran in seconds later, kneeling beside him. She shook him gently until his eyes fluttered open. What happened? She asked. Nathan looked confused, groggy. Why am I on the floor? We all started talking at once, telling her what he had done, what he had said. Nathan just stared at us, shaking his head. I don't remember any of that. The next morning, we left early. No one wanted to stay in that house any longer. Nathan acted like nothing was wrong, though he did look tired, dark circles under his eyes. As I packed up my things, I passed his bedroom door. It was open a crack. Inside, his bed was messy, blankets kicked to the floor. But what caught my eye was the wall above his bed. The paint was scratched. Long, thin scratches like fingernails dragged across it in frantic lines. I didn't tell anyone. I just grabbed my bag and left. Years later, I still think about that night. About the way Nathan's whispers didn't sound like his own. About how he pointed at us and said, he's in the room. And the part that keeps me awake isn't wondering who he was. It's wondering if he ever left. Sleepovers are supposed to be about fun, games, snacks, laughter so loud the parents come in and tell you to keep it down. But sometimes when the night stretches too long and the house gets too quiet, things happen that you never forget. For me, it was the night we took a photo we never should have taken. It was at my friend Jake's house. His parents let us stay up late, because it was the start of summer break. We had chips, soda, and an old speaker blasting music in his living room. The five of us were dancing around, making fools of ourselves, and someone suggested we take group selfies to remember the night. Jake's living room had a big couch against the wall, a coffee table in the middle, and floor-to-ceiling curtains covering the window. We piled onto the couch, squeezing in, leaning over each other, pulling faces. Jake's phone clicked photo after photo. We scrolled through them right away, laughing at how goofy we looked. Half-open eyes, tongue sticking out, someone mid-sneeze. But then we reached one photo that made everyone stop laughing. Because in the background, behind the couch, there was someone else. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light. But no, it was clear. Crouched low, half hidden behind the couch, was the face of a man. Pale skin, dark hollow eyes, mouth slightly open. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't moving. He was just there, staring straight at the camera. Jake's smile faded. That's not funny. Who edited this? No one, I said quickly. You took it like 2 minutes ago. We flipped back and forth between the photos. In a shot just before, the man wasn't there. In a shot after, he wasn't there either. Only in that one picture. But the living room had been silent. None of us had seen anyone. Maybe it's your brother, one of the boys said. But Jake shook his head. He's at a friend's house. He hasn't been home all day. We all stared at the photo again. The longer I looked, the sicker I felt. The man's eyes seemed too focused, too alive, like he knew we were watching him even now. We tore the living room apart, searching, behind the couch, under the table, in the hallway closet. Nothing. The house was empty except for us. Jake locked the doors, checked the windows twice. His parents were asleep upstairs. We didn't want to wake them. We'd just get in trouble for scaring ourselves. So we tried to forget about it. We turned the music back on, shoved the phone under a pillow, and forced ourselves to laugh again. But the photo burned in the back of my mind. Later, when the house was finally quiet and everyone was lying in their sleeping bags, I couldn't sleep. My eyes kept flicking to the couch. What if he was still there, crouching, waiting? At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke to the sound of whispering. I opened my eyes and saw Jake on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through the pictures again. His face was pale, the glow of the screen making him look almost ghostly. "What are you doing?" I whispered. He looked at me, eyes wide. "He's still in it." "What do you mean?" He turned the phone toward me. The photo was different. The man behind the couch wasn't crouching anymore. He was standing. His face was clearer now, his hollow eyes fixed even sharper on the camera. My chest went cold. "No, that's not how it looked before." "I know," Jake whispered. "It changed." We woke the others, showing them the screen. Some thought Jake was messing with us, but I knew he wasn't. The man had moved. Someone suggested deleting the photo. Jake tried. He tapped the trash icon, but the phone froze. The screen flickered, glitched, then returned to the gallery. The photo was still there. Only now, the man looked closer. He was leaning out from behind the couch, half his body visible. His mouth was open wider, like he was about to speak. One of the boys cursed under his breath. "That's it. I'm not staying in here." He grabbed his blanket and stormed toward the kitchen. But before he reached the door, the living room went dark. The lamp flicked off. The speaker died. The only light came from Jake's phone, glowing in his trembling hands. The photo had changed again. The man wasn't in the background anymore. He was right at the front. The phone slipped from Jake's hand, clattering to the floor. We scrambled backward, hearts pounding. For a long second, none of us moved. The room felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then, from the couch, we heard it. A sound like fabric shifting. Slow, careful, as if someone was crawling out from behind it. We bolted. No one cared about keeping quiet anymore. We ran down the hallway, up the stairs, pounding on his parents' bedroom door until the lights came on and they opened it, bleary and confused. We tried to explain, tripping over our words. They didn't believe us, of course. Jake's dad stomped downstairs, turned on the lights, checked behind the couch. Nothing. Just blankets and crumbs from our snacks. Enough, he said sharply. Go to bed. All of you. We didn't argue. We just went upstairs and locked ourselves in Jake's room, too terrified to speak. In the morning, with sunlight streaming through the windows, it almost felt like a dream. We tried to laugh about it, but the laughter was thin and shaky. Jake pulled out his phone, saying we'd prove it was real. But the photo was gone. Not just that one, all of them. Every picture we'd taken tonight before had been erased. His gallery was empty. It's a glitch, his dad said when we told him. Phones do that sometimes. But I know what I saw. We all do. The memory still sits heavy in my chest. Not just because of the photo or the way it changed, but because sometimes when I take pictures at night, I catch myself scanning the background too carefully, looking for him, wondering if he'll show up again, crouched just out of sight, waiting to be noticed. I was excited to sleep over at my friend Ayan's house. It was his birthday, and his parents said I could stay the night. Ayan lived in an old house on a quiet street near the hill. The house had tall doors, wooden floors, and a long hallway that made our footsteps sound louder than they were. His family moved there after his grandpa passed away. They were still fixing things. Some doors stuck. Some windows shook in the wind. It felt old, but it also felt warm because Ayan's mom kept the kitchen light on and baked us a small cake. We ate spicy chips, watched funny videos, and built a tent from bed sheets in the guest room. The guest room had 2 narrow beds, a small green rug, and a big wooden closet with 2 doors. The closet was deep and dark. When I opened it earlier to hang my jacket, the inside smelled like old books and dust. There were 3 empty hangers, a broken umbrella, and a shoebox with nothing inside. I closed it fast because the smell made me sneeze. At around 10, Ayan's little sister, Mehak, came in to say goodnight. She said, "Don't play too loud," and pointed at the closet with a little smile. "That closet makes sounds sometimes," she said, like she was telling a secret. Ayan rolled his eyes. "It's the wind," he told me. "There's a vent behind the wall." Mehak shrugged and skipped away. We played a board game on a green rug and told silly stories. The house made small creaks, like someone stepping far away. The hallway bulb bust. Outside, the wind grew strong and pushed white curtains toward us when the window was not fully closed. Ayan's dad came to check the latch and clicked it tight. "Wind is playful tonight," he said. He smiled, yawned, and left. After midnight, we switched off the big light and kept only a small lamp on the floor. The lamp made a yellow circle around our tent. Our shadows moved on the ceiling like slow fish in a pond. We were not really sleepy, so we shared snacks and whispered about school and cricket and a boy who always cheated in class games. Ayan told me a story his grandpa used to tell, a story about hiding in the war when people stayed quiet in closets and under stairs. The story was not scary. It was sad. I thought about people hiding and waiting for danger to pass. I looked at the closet and felt strange, like it was holding its breath. That was when I heard it. It was soft. So soft I was not sure I heard it right. A breathy sound, like someone trying to speak through a scarf. "Hello." I sat up. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "Hear what?" Ayan said. From the closet, I whispered, like a voice. We went quiet. The wind patted the window. The hallway bulb bust. Then, from the dark line between the closet doors, we heard it again. A thin, shaky whisper. Not a word I knew, just the shape of a word, like air pressed into a mouth. I felt my skin prickle. "It's the vent," Ayan said, but his voice sounded too quick and too steady, like he was making it steady on purpose. He stood up, walked to the closet, and pulled the right door. It opened with a tired groan. The closet looked the same. Hangers, umbrella, empty floor, dust. We both leaned in. The smell was stronger now. I tugged the other door wide. The lamplight slid inside and showed the back of the closet. That was when I saw them. Scratches. Long, thin scratches across the inside of the door. Some went straight. Some curved like a child's drawing of rain. At the bottom, near the floor, there were little half-moon marks, as if someone had pressed nails into the wood. I swallowed. Maybe a cat. I said, "We never had a cat," Ayan said. He shut the closet. The doors clicked together. We sat back in our tent and tried to laugh. We said it was old wood. We said it was the wind. We said a lot of things to make the feeling go away. But the feeling did not go away. It sat in the room, near the closet, quiet and heavy. At 1:30, Ayan dozed off. I stayed awake, listening. The house made more night sounds. Water moving in the pipe. A car far outside. A loose tile tapping in the kitchen when the wind changed. I tried to count to 100, then to 500, but each time I reached a number with a 0, I thought I heard a whisper again. It was like the whisper was hiding between my numbers. Around 2 o'clock, I heard something different. This time it was not a word. It was a slow, soft knock. Not on the door to the hallway. Not on the window. On the closet. 1, 2, 3. I sat up and shook Ayan. "It's knocking," I said. He blinked, frowned, and listened. The knock came again. 1, 2, 3. I could see his face change. He was trying to be brave. He took the lamp, stood, and went to the closet. "On 3, he said. 1, 2, 3. He opened the doors. The lamp light spilled into the closet like a small sunrise. We stared. There was nothing new to see, but we heard something from farther back. It was not from the closet itself. It was from behind the wood at the back. A secret space. "Hold this," he said, giving me the lamp. He touched the back panel with his fingers. The wood moved a little like a loose tooth. He pulled again. The panel lifted up at one corner. My mouth went dry. There was a gap. Behind the panel, there was a narrow space as wide as my shoulder. It smelled like cold, dry dirt. I moved the lamp closer. The light showed a tunnel going to the left. It was not long, just a small, hidden passage like the inside of a wall. Maybe it went to the attic. Maybe it went in nowhere. I did not want to know. In the hole, there was a tin box covered in dust, a marble with a blue swirl, and a small cloth that looked like a handkerchief. Ayan reached for the tin box. He opened it. Inside were folded papers. Old papers. When he lifted one, the edges broke a little. The top paper had a name written in pencil. Rafi. The letters were messy, like a child's. Below the name, there were small sentences. "I hide when Baba is angry. I count to 100 and wait. I don't make a sound." Ayan's hand shook. He set the papers back and closed the tin. We looked at each other. The house seemed to lean closer to us like it was listening. My belly felt heavy and sad. I thought of Ayan's grandpa, of people who had to hide, of the scratches on the door. I thought of a boy named Rafi, who counted and did not make a sound. I did not want to think about why he hid. I did not want to think about where he went. Then we heard a flutter. It came from the hole, a fast, dry rustle. I jumped. Ayan pulled his hand away. The flutter came again, harder, like paper wings against wood. "Something's in there," I said. "Probably a bird," Ayan whispered. It got stuck. The flutter turned into a scrabble, like small claws dragging on wood. The sound was not far. It was right behind the panel. The panel trembled in Ayan's hand. I backed up so fast, I bumped the lamp, and the room turned into long, jumping shadows. For a moment, the sound stopped. Then we heard that breathy, almost word again, like the sound air makes when it squeezes through a tiny crack. We could not move. We stayed like that, two statues with big eyes, watching the closet. The panel shook once more. The scrabbling grew wild, then sudden quiet. I felt sick. Ayan put the panel back and closed the closet doors. He pushed his small study table in front of them. "We'll tell Dad," he said. His voice was thin. We took our blankets and pillows and moved to the living room. The hallway felt colder. The living room felt safe because it had a big window that showed the sky, and the sofa felt firm and solid and clean. We curled up on the rug. We did not sleep much, but at least we closed our eyes. At 3:13, I woke up. The house was still. The wind had slowed. A soft moon made a white shape on the floor. I almost fell back asleep when I heard a tiny, tiny sound from the guest room. Not a knock, not a whisper, just the smallest scrape, like a fingernail on a wall. I held my breath. The sound did not come again. I told myself it was the wood cooling, like my science teacher said. Wood grows and shrinks with heat and cold. I held on to that thought like a rope. I slept. In the morning, the kitchen smelled like parther and tea. Ayan's dad listened as we told him everything. He did not smile this time. He took a flashlight and a screwdriver, and we went to the guest room together. The table still blocked the closet. He slid it away and opened the doors. He tapped the back panel. Loose, he said. He lifted it out. The hidden space looked smaller in the day. The tin box was there, the marble, the cloth. The walls had gray dust and thin threads like old spider webs. Near the top, the flashlight showed soft feathers stuck to a rough nail. Ayan's dad reached in carefully and then flinched. It's a bird, he said. A starling. Poor thing. He made a soft net with a towel and, very gently, brought the bird out. Its wings fluttered weakly. Its chest moved fast. Its eyes were black beads, shiny and scared. He took it to the open window and let it go. The bird flew crooked, like it had a wing asleep, then steadied and shot into the bright morning. We watched it become a dot. Back in the room, Ayan's dad showed us a crack up near the ceiling inside the wall space. The vent outside is broken, he said. Wind comes through here. That's your whisper. The bird must have slipped in through the vent and got stuck. He sighed and rubbed the wood. These scratches old, very old. Your grandpa might have made this hideaway when he was young. Many people made small places to hide in those days. He put the panel back, hammered 2 small nails to hold it tight, and said he would call someone to fix the outside vent. He also brought a small pot of paint from the storeroom and asked us to help paint the inside of the closet door so the scratches would not catch on our clothes. I dipped the brush and brushed white paint over the lines. The scratches drank the paint like dry fields drink rain. Some lines were deep and did not vanish right away. Ayan painted beside me, slow and careful. We were quiet. I was thinking about the tin box. I wanted to open it again. I want to know more about Rafi, but I did not know if I should. Some stories sit better when they are sleeping. When the paint dried, the closet looked new. Ayan's mom brought us tea with too much sugar and laughed at our pale faces. Brave boys, she said. We tried to smile, but my smile felt stuck. Before I left, I went back to the guest room alone for a minute. The morning made the room look smaller. The closet doors were clean and smooth now. I put my hand on the wood. It felt a little warm from the sun. I listened. There was nothing but the soft sound of air in the house and the clink of dishes in the kitchen. It was safe. I was about to turn away when I noticed something at the bottom corner of the door, where the paint was not as thick. A very faint line, almost hidden by the new white. It was a tiny word, scratched in, shallow and careful. I bent down and squinted. Quiet. Just that. One small word. Not a warning. Not a threat. Just a rule. Like a child telling himself what to do. I felt my chest ache. I thought of someone counting and not making a sound. I thought of a boy with a tin box and a blue marble, pressing his nails into wood while he waited for yelling to stop or boots to pass or fear to melt. The house was not haunted by a ghost. It was haunted by a memory. The wind, the bird, the scratches, everything had a reason. The scare was real. The reasons were real too. That made it scarier in a new way. On the way out, I asked Ayan if we could keep the tin box somewhere safe. He nodded. We took it to the bookshelf in the living room and slid it between two thick history books. We did not open it again. Not that day. When my dad came to pick me up, I told him the whole story in the car. He listened and patted my shoulder. He said old houses remember things. He said sometimes the wind sounds like voices because we are ready to hear them. He said learning the truth is also a kind of courage. That night, in my own room, I kept the window a little open because I wanted to hear the night and not be afraid of it. The curtains puffed like slow breaths. A bike went by on the road. A dog barked once and then slept. I closed my eyes and counted to 100. I told myself a small rule, the way someone once did in that closet long ago. Quiet. I fell asleep. A week later, I went back to Ayan's house for homework. The repairman had fixed the vent cover outside. The guest room felt lighter. The closet doors opened and closed without the tired groan. No wind spoke through cracks. No birds scrabbled behind wood. But when we played a short game on the green rug after finishing our math, we spoke softly like the room taught us how. We did not say it out loud, but we both knew it. We would never knock on that closet for fun. We would not dare each other to sit in the dark. Some places had jobs before we were born. That closet's job once was to keep someone safe. Now our job was to let it rest. Before I left, I pressed my hand to the door one last time. The paint was fully dry, smooth as a plate. From far away, the scratches were gone. From very close, in the right light, you could still see thin lines beneath the white, like a picture under snow. I did not try to read them. I did not need to. On the way home, the sky turned pink. I looked at the clouds and thought of the starling flying out, confused, then finding the open air and getting steady again. I hoped it made it to a tree. I hoped it sang. I hoped, wherever old fears go, they find a place to be quiet too. Sometimes when I try to sleep, I remember the first whisper in that room. It felt like a ghost. Now I think it was a house telling us to listen. And we did. Now, even in my own room, when the curtains move and the air learns to speak, I hear the same word, small and careful, but not scary anymore. Quiet. Every group of kids has one bad idea that goes too far. For us, it was playing the mirror game at Emily's sleepover. We thought it would just be a laugh, a silly dare before bedtime. But it left me with something I've never forgotten, because mirrors don't always show just your reflection. It was a Friday night in early spring. 5 of us were squeezed into Emily's room, surrounded by blankets, popcorn bowls, and half-finished sodas. We'd already painted each other's nails, tried singing into hairbrushes like microphones, and scared ourselves with a horror movie. Then someone brought it up. "Let's play Bloody Mary," Emma whispered, grinning. The room fell quiet. Everyone knew the game. Stand in front of a mirror, lights off, candle burning. Say her name 3 times and wait for her to appear. It was the kind of thing whispered about at school, usually with giggles, but none of us had actually done it. Emily's house made it worse. It was old, with creaky pipes and walls that groaned at night. The bathroom down the hall had a big mirror above the sink and no window, which meant once the lights went out, it was pure blackness. At first, we laughed it off. That's so dumb. It's just a baby game. But the more we denied it, the more curious we became. Eventually, Emily fetched a small candle from the kitchen drawer. "Fine," she said. "We'll do it, but only one at a time." Emma volunteered first. We all crowded into the hallway while she slipped inside the bathroom, lit the candle, and shut the door. Through the crack at the bottom, we saw the glow of her shadow. "1, 2, 3, she chanted softly. "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." Silence. Then her laugh. She burst out of the bathroom with the candle flickering wildly. "Nothing happened," she said. The tension broke, and we all laughed too. "Told you it was fake," someone said. But I wasn't convinced. I'd seen her hand shake when she came out, though she pretended to smile. One by one, the others tried. Nothing happened. At least, nothing they admitted. When it was my turn, I didn't want to be the coward. So I took the candle and went in. The bathroom smelled faintly of bleach. The walls seemed closer with the door shut. I set the candle on the sink, its flame trembling like it was nervous too. My reflection stared back at me from a mirror, my own pale face, wide eyes, mouth pressed tight. I cleared my throat and whispered, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." At first, nothing, just my face in the flickering light. But the longer I stared, the stranger it became. My reflection didn't move right. It tilted its head slower than I did. Its eyes seemed darker, as though the pupils had spread too wide. For a split second, I thought its lips curled into a smile, even though mine hadn't moved. My chest tightened. I grabbed the candle and yanked the door open, rushing into the hallway. Everyone laughed and teased, but I barely heard them. My reflection had looked wrong. We told ourselves it was just tricks of the light. That's what everyone says. But later, when the house was quiet and the adults had gone to bed, I had to use the bathroom again. I tried to convince myself it would be fine. Just go. Wash your hands. Don't look in the mirror too long. But curiosity pulled at me like a string. When I finished and turned on the sink, my eyes flicked up. My reflection was already smiling. I froze. My lips weren't smiling. My face was straight tense. But in the mirror, my mouth stretched into a grin that didn't belong to me. The bathroom light flickered. Then the reflection's hand twitched. It lifted slowly, pressing flat against the glass. I hadn't moved mine. A crack echoed through the room, like glass straining under pressure. Tiny lines spread from the corner of the mirror. My stomach dropped. I backed away, bumping into the door. The reflection didn't back away. It pressed harder, its grin widening until the skin at the corners of its mouth looked ready to tear. I bolted, flinging the door open and racing back to the game room. I didn't tell the others at first. They would have laughed, or worse, believe me. I lay in my sleeping bag, pulling the blanket over my head, heart pounding, but I couldn't sleep, because even through the crack under the door, I thought I saw a light flickering, like a candle glowing from the bathroom. We hadn't left a candle in there. At around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleeping. I sat up and glanced at the doorway. The hallway was dark, but in the shadow, I saw something move. For a heartbeat, I swore I saw my own face staring back at me. Pale, smiling, standing at the edge of the dark. I squeezed my eyes shut and didn't open them again until morning. When the sun came in, everything looked normal. The bathroom mirror had no cracks, just smudges of toothpaste and streaks of water. The candle was back in Emily's drawer. No one else seemed shaken. But when I brushed my teeth before leaving, I couldn't stop myself from glancing at the mirror one more time. And for the briefest second, my reflection didn't follow. It lingered, still smiling, even as I turned away. I've avoided mirrors at night ever since. I cover the one in my bedroom before bed, because sometimes in the corner of my eye, I still catch it, my face in the glass, grinning when I'm not. And I know it's waiting for me to play the game again. I always thought sleepovers were supposed to be fun, pizza, games, and whispering jokes until we passed out. But the night at Samir's house was different. It was the kind of night that stays in your mind forever, no matter how hard you try to forget. Samir's house was old and big, sitting at the end of a road that curved into tall trees. His dad worked nights at the hospital, and his mom was visiting her sister in another city, so it was just his kids in the house. Samir's older brother, Zion, was supposed to watch us, but mostly he just stayed in his room playing loud music. The night started like any other sleepover. We built a fort out of blankets, grabbed chips, and put on scary movies we pretended didn't scare us. Samir had a giant living room with long curtains and a big glass window that looked out into the backyard. The backyard was huge, just grass, trees at the edge, and an old swing set that squeaked when the wind blew. By 11, a storm rolled in. The thunder made the house shake a little, and the rain hit the windows like pebbles. We thought it was cool. Lightning flashed now and then, lighting up the entire backyard for a split second. That was when I saw it the first time. The flash was bright, almost white. For less than a second, I saw a shape at the window. A pale face pressed against the glass, wide eyes staring in. The mouth was stretched like it wanted to say something but couldn't. I froze. My chips dropped onto the blanket. "What's wrong?" Samir asked. I shook my head. "Nothing. Thought I saw something." He laughed. "Too many horror movies, bro." I tried to laugh too. Maybe it was my reflection in the glass. Maybe it was just a trick of the storm. But when the next lightning bolt flashed, I looked again. The face wasn't there. The window showed only blackness and streaks of rain. We kept watching the movie, but I couldn't stop glancing at the glass. Every time the lightning flashed, I searched for that pale face. For 20 minutes, nothing showed. I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. Then it came again. This time the flash revealed the face clearly, right against the glass, nose flattened, lips parted. The eyes looked dead, wide and dark. The face wasn't moving, just staring. I grabbed Samir's arm. Look at the window." But when he turned, the light was gone. The glass was empty again. "You're freaking yourself out," he said. "Don't mess with me like that." "I'm not," I said. There was someone there. We argued in whispers, not wanting Zion to yell at us. Finally, Samir sighed. "Fine, let's check." We pulled the curtains apart and pressed our faces to the cold glass. Rain streaked down in crooked lines. The backyard looked empty. The swing set rocked slowly in the wind. The grass shivered under the storm. "No one's out there," Samir said. Happy now, but I wasn't. My chest felt tight, and I couldn't shake the memory of that pale face. "There should be footprints," I whispered. "If someone came to the window, the ground would show it." Samir frowned. He didn't want to admit I might be right, but the idea got stuck in both our heads. We found ourselves standing at the back door, flashlights in our hands. The storm was weaker now, just a steady drizzle. Samir opened the door, and cold air rushed in. We stepped out onto the wet grass. Our flashlights cut through the dark, swinging across the yard. The mud should have been full of prints, but there was nothing. Not a single mark under the window. Just smooth, soaked earth. "See?" Samir said, though his voice shook a little. "No one's here. Just your imagination." I nodded, but deep down I didn't believe it. We ran back inside, locked the door, and pulled the curtains shut tight. We tried to joke around again, but the fun had leaked out of the night. At around 1 a.m., we gave up on the movie and lay down in our blanket fort. Samir snored almost right away. I stayed awake, staring at the dim ceiling. And then I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. At first, I thought it was rain, but the storm had slowed. The sound was too sharp, too steady. Tap, 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 like fingernails on glass. My stomach turned cold. I pushed myself up, careful not to wake Samir. The tapping came from the window. I crawled out of the fort and inched toward the curtains. "Don't," whispered a voice in my head. "Don't look." But I had to. I had to know. I pinched the curtain between my fingers and pulled it open an inch. The pale face was right there. Inches away, the eyes stared straight into mine. Wide, hollow. The lips moved slowly, soundlessly, like they were trying to form a word. I screamed. Samir shot up, confused. Zion burst into the room, angry. "What's going on?" "The window," I shouted. "There's someone." We all turned. The window was empty. The rain had stopped. The glass was clean, clear. Nothing there. "You're insane," Zion snapped. "Stop acting like kids." He stomped back to his room. Samir looked at me like I had ruined the night. But he could see how pale I was, how my hand shook. He didn't laugh this time. He just sat beside me, silent. We kept the lights on the rest of the night. Neither of us slept. Every time the house creaked, we flinched. Every time shadows moved, we held our breath. But the face never came back. In the morning, when the sun rose, we dared to look outside again. The backyard looked normal. Wet grass shining, birds hopping near the swing set. But under the window, where the mud should have been smooth, there were marks. Not footprints, not shoe prints. Scratches. Long, thin scratches in the earth, as if something had dragged its fingers through the mud, reaching for the glass. That was the last sleepover I ever had at Samir's house. Even now, years later, I can't stand big windows at night, because sometimes when the sky flashes or when the rain slows, I remember that face. And I know, deep down, it was never my imagination. Some sleepovers are loud and silly, the kind you forget after a week. Others carve themselves into your memory so deeply that even years later, one sound can bring it all back. For me, it's tapping. A simple tap on wood is enough to make my chest tighten, because I'll always remember the night we heard tapping under the floor. It happened at my friend Oliver's house. His place was different from most of ours. It had an attic bedroom, tucked under a slanted roof. His parents had fixed it up so he could have his own space. The walls were painted blue, a small rug covered the middle of the wooden floor, and a single window looked out over the backyard. It wasn't big, but it felt private, like a little hideout above the world. 4 of us were crammed into that attic on a rainy Saturday night. We had dragged sleeping bags across the floor and stacked snacks in a tower by the bed. The rain pattered on the roof, steady and calm, like a lullaby. It should have been cozy, but the attic always felt strange. The floorboards creaked in places no one was standing. The windows sometimes fogged up from the inside, even when the air wasn't humid. Oliver joked about it all the time, saying the attic had character. We laughed too, but none of us liked being the last to fall asleep there. At first, everything was fine. We ate too much candy, made up ridiculous dares, and watched scary videos on Oliver's tablet. Around 1 a.m, we finally decided to sleep. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the house settled into silence. I was lying on my back, staring at the slanted ceiling when I heard it. Tap! A single knock against the wood. I thought it was one of the others shifting in their sleeping bag. I closed my eyes. Tap! Tap! This time it came from directly beneath me, under the floor. I sat up, listening hard. The others stirred. Did you hear that? I whispered. Yeah. Oliver muttered, rubbing his eyes. Probably the pipes. We lay still, waiting. The attic was quiet for a moment. Then, tap, tap, tap. 3 sharp knocks, steady, like someone drumming fingers against the underside of the floorboards. My mouth went dry. That's not pipes, I whispered. The sound stopped again. We looked at each other nervously. Finally, one of the boys laughed weakly. Maybe it's a raccoon or something. But raccoons didn't tap in patterns. We tried to sleep again, but the tapping returned. This time it was slower. Tap, 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 almost like a message. Oliver grabbed a flashlight and banged his fist against the floor. Knock it off, he said, though his voice wasn't as brave as he wanted it to be. The tapping answered, for quick knocks. Then silence. My stomach twisted. It felt like something down there had just replied. We argued in whispers about what to do. Oliver wanted to pretend it was nothing. I wanted to go downstairs and sleep in the living room. The others couldn't decide. Then, just as we were debating, the tapping started again, but this time it spelled something. Knock, 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 pause, knock, pause, knock, knock. We stared at each other, wide-eyed. That's Morse code, one of us whispered. We didn't know Morse code well, but it didn't matter. The sound of someone trying to communicate from under the floor was enough to make my skin crawl. Oliver shook his head, forcing a laugh. You guys are just imagining things. But then the flashlight flickered, and in that brief dim light, I saw something. A small bump under the rug. It moved slowly, as though something beneath the floorboards was pressing upward. We all scrambled back, hearts racing. Oliver yanked the rug away, and sure enough, the floorboards underneath were trembling slightly, like something was pushing from below. Tap, 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 right there, inches from our feet. Nope, 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 one of the boys muttered, grabbing his sleeping bag and heading for the ladder. But before he reached it, the tapping stopped. Then came a sound worse than the knocks. A long, slow scratch, like fingernails dragging across wood, starting beneath the rug's edge and sliding toward the window. We stood frozen, listening to the sound crawl its way under the floorboards. It reached the wall beneath the window, then silence. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. We huddled together, every creak of the attic making us jump. By morning, the sunlight made everything look ordinary again. The floorboards were still. The rug lay flat. But when we finally gathered the courage to check the spot where the bump had been, we found something. Carved into the wood, faint but real, were 3 letters. HL, like someone had tried to scratch out help, but hadn't finished. Oliver's parents thought we had done it ourselves as part of some spooky game. They laughed when we tried to explain. Old houses make noises, his dad said. You boys scared yourselves. But none of us could explain the scratches, or why the tapping had come in patterns, or why the bump under the rug had moved. I never slept in that attic again. Even now, when I hear someone absent-mindedly drumming their fingers on a desk, my chest tightens, because it sounds too much like that night. And I can't shake the thought that maybe someone really was under the floor, tapping for us to listen. I used to love sleepovers. They meant late-night snacks, scary stories, and laughter until our stomachs hurt. But one night changed the way I felt forever. It wasn't just a scare. It was something I still can't explain, no matter how many times I replay it in my head. It was Friday evening when I went to stay over at my friend Daniel's house. His parents were away for the weekend, so his older sister was in charge. She mostly stayed in her room with headphones on, barely paying attention to us. That meant we had freedom, and freedom usually meant mischief. We ordered pizza, spread out our sleeping bags in the living room, and put on a movie we weren't supposed to watch. After the movie, we grew restless. It was still only around 11. Daniel had an idea. Let's prank call people, he said with a grin. I laughed. It felt silly, but we were bored enough to try. He grabbed the house phone from the kitchen. It was one of those cordless landline phones with a glowing green screen. We dialed random numbers, holding back laughter as we asked strangers if their refrigerator was running. Some people hung up immediately. A few shouted at us. Once or twice, no one answered, and we left creepy breathing noises before hanging up. It was childish, but kept us busy. Then came a call. We had just hung up on some angry man when the phone rang back almost instantly. We froze. The caller ID showed private number. Answer it, I whispered. Daniel raised his eyebrows, but pressed the green button. Hello. For a moment, there was nothing but static. Then a voice rasped through. It was low, broken, almost like someone whispering through a fan. Daniel. His eyes widened. My chest tightened. He hung up, face pale. That's not funny, he muttered. I didn't say anything. I shot back. It wasn't me. The phone sat between us on the carpet. A few seconds later, it rang again. Same thing. Private number. Don't answer, I whispered. But Daniel did. He pressed it to his ear, frowning. Who is this? The same rasping voice came again. This time I could hear it too, faint but clear. Daniel, come upstairs. My stomach dropped. The hairs on my arms stood up. Without a word, he hung up again and slammed the phone onto the carpet. We sat frozen, staring at each other. The living room was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Finally, Daniel whispered, the landline upstairs. It came from there. I felt my throat tighten. How do you know? Because that's what the caller ID says when you call from another house phone. Private number. We both turned our heads slowly toward the staircase. It was dark, the top hidden in shadows. At first, we argued about what to do. Daniel said it had to be a glitch, maybe a cross signal. I said maybe someone had broken in upstairs. The thought made my chest ache. We grabbed flashlights from the kitchen drawer and crept up the stairs. Each step groaned under our weight. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and something old, like the air hadn't been moved in a long time. The upstairs hallway had 3 doors: his sister's room, his parents' bedroom, and the guest room. At the end of the hall was a small table where the old landline sat on a charging base. Its red light glowed faintly in the dark. We walked closer. The air felt thick. Then, just as we reached the table, the phone rang. The shrill sound split the silence. We both jumped back, flashlights shaking. The screen lit up. Again, private number. Daniel reached out with a trembling hand and pressed the answer button. Slowly, he put it to his ear. I could hear the voice even though it wasn't on speaker. I told you, come upstairs. Daniel threw the phone onto the floor. It clattered against the wood. My pulse pounded in my ears. We bolted back down the stairs, not stopping until we collapsed onto the living room carpet. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us wanted to. We decided to unplug the phones. Daniel ran into the kitchen, yanked the cord from the wall, and tossed the phone aside. I stayed in the living room, hugging my knees. For a while, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. We tried turning on the TV to drown out the silence, but my eyes kept flicking to the staircase. It felt like the shadows were watching us. Then the phone rang again, but it wasn't the kitchen phone. The ringing came from upstairs. The sound echoed faintly down the hallway and into the living room. That same shrill tone. Again and again. Daniel's face turned white. We unplugged it, he whispered. My heart raced. I wanted to run outside, into the stormy night, barefoot, if I had to, but my body felt locked in place. The ringing stopped after 5 long chimes. Silence filled the house. We stayed awake until morning, refusing to go back upstairs. At one point, Daniel's sister stomped down to yell at us for being too loud. We didn't tell her what had happened. She would have laughed, or worse, thought we were making it up for attention. By sunrise, we were half asleep, eyes red and sore. When the light finally filled the living room, the terror seemed less sharp, like a nightmare that fades when you open your eyes. But before I left, I needed to know. Let's check, I told him. We climbed the stairs slowly, every step creaking in the morning quiet. The hallway looked normal, brighter now with sunlight. The phone sat neatly on the table. Only it wasn't. The receiver was off the hook, dangling by its cord, swinging slightly like someone had just set it down. We looked at each other, neither of us breathing. Daniel picked it up with shaking hands and placed it back in its cradle. Then we noticed something. The small screen lit up as it reset itself. And there, in black letters, were the last words typed into its memory log. Last call, 2:07 a.m. from guest room. Neither of us ever used the phones in his house again. Whenever I visited after that, I always avoided looking upstairs, and Daniel's family eventually got rid of the landlines altogether, switching to mobile phones. But I'll never forget that rasping voice calling from inside the house, telling us to come upstairs. Because the worst part isn't that it happened. The worst part is knowing we did go upstairs. And whatever made that call was waiting for us the whole time. There are moments in life that carve themselves into your memory. Not because they were fun or exciting, but because they left you with a feeling you can never shake. For me, that moment happened during a sleepover at my cousin Ryan's house, when we realized that sometimes the scariest thing isn't a ghost or a monster, but a door opening in the middle of the night when no one is supposed to be there. It was the middle of autumn. The air outside was crisp, and the leaves scraped against the windows in the wind. Ryan's parents had gone out for the evening, leaving us in charge of the house. We set up our sleeping bags in the living room, dragging the coffee table out of the way to make space. The house wasn't very big. The living room had one wide window with heavy curtains, a small fireplace that hadn't been used in years, and the front door off to the side. From where we sat on the carpet, we could see it clearly. At first, the night was fun. We ordered pizza, played cards, and told scary stories we half remembered from school. The kind of stories that make you laugh nervously after telling them. By the time it was close to midnight, the wind outside had grown louder. The old house groaned against it, the wood creaking and sighing. We turned off the lights and let the glow from the TV be our night light. That was when we heard it. The front door creaked. We both froze. It wasn't the sound of the house shifting or the wind rattling the walls. It was a long, slow groan, the sound of a heavy door moving against its hinges. Ryan grabbed the remote and muted the TV. The room fell silent except for the steady beat of our hearts. We turned toward the door. It was open, not all the way, just a few inches, enough to see a slice of black night beyond it. Cold air slipped in, brushing over our faces. Neither of us moved. "Did you?" Ryan whispered. I shook my head quickly. No, I didn't touch it. We stared at it for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, Ryan stood. He tiptoed to the door, grabbed the handle, and pulled it shut. The lock clicked into place. He even slid the chain across. "Old house," he said nervously, trying to smile. The wind probably blew it open. I wanted to believe him, but the lock had been set earlier. I remembered hearing it click when his parents left. We tried to settle back down, but neither of us could relax. Every sound made us jump. The wind, the pipes, the tick of the clock. Then it happened again, a soft creak. We whipped our heads toward the door. It was open, wider this time. The chain was dangling loose, the lock unlatched. The door stood half open, cold night air rushing in. Ryan's face went pale. He stumbled back, shaking his head. "That's not possible," he whispered. "I locked it. I swear I did." I felt my chest tighten. My eyes darted to the floor near the doorway. The wooden boards were dusty. If someone had come inside, there would be footprints. But the floor was clean, completely untouched. We didn't go near the door again. Not this time. Instead, we grabbed our sleeping bags and dragged them into the kitchen, far from the entrance. We shut the kitchen door and sat huddled together, listening. For a long time, the house was silent. Then, faintly, we heard it, the sound of the door creaking open again. But this time, it didn't stop halfway. It opened all the way. We knew without looking. We heard the hinges groan, the wood thump softly against the wall. And then, silence. Neither of us dare move. The kitchen felt too small, too exposed. The only thing between us and the open doorway was a thin wooden door. Then came the footsteps. Slow, heavy, crossing the living room one by one. Ryan clamped his hand over his mouth. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it would give us away. The footsteps stopped right outside the kitchen door. The handle twitched. I thought I would faint, but the door didn't open. The handle just moved slightly like someone testing it. Then, silence again. Minutes passed, maybe hours. It felt endless. Finally, Ryan whispered, "We have to check." I wanted to scream at him not to, but before I could, he stood and inched the kitchen door open. The living room was empty. The front door stood wide open, cold night spilling inside. We slammed it shut together, locking it, chaining it, even pushing the coffee table in front of it. Then we ran upstairs to his room and barricaded ourselves inside with a chair against the door. Neither of us slept. Every creak of the house felt like footsteps. Every gust of wind felt like someone breathing against the window. By morning, when the sun finally lit the house, we crept back downstairs. The coffee table was still against the door. The lock was still in place. The chain was still across. But the door was standing wide open. Ryan's parents thought we were being dramatic. They said the old door frame probably shifted in the wind. They promised to have it fixed. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. Because no matter how many times I replay that night in my head, there's one detail I can't explain. The dust near the door. It had been cleaned the night before. But in the morning, there were prints in it. Not shoe prints. Not bare feet. Handprints. As if someone had crawled in, low to the ground, and then disappeared. That was the last sleepover I ever had at Ryan's house. Because sometimes doors don't just open by themselves. Sometimes they're open for someone else. Sleepovers are supposed to be safe. You know who's there, you know who's sleeping where, and everyone is accounted for. That's what makes this story so hard for me to explain, because that night there was someone else with us, someone none of us invited. It was my friend Lucas's birthday. 4 of us came over with gifts, sleeping bags, and way too much junk food. His parents ordered pizza and rented a couple of movies. The house was small but cozy. Living room in front, kitchen behind it, and 3 bedrooms down the hall. We built a fort out of chairs and blankets in the living room. The TV was pushed to the side so we'd have more space, and we dragged in every pillow we could find. It felt like our own little camp inside the house. After the pizza and cake, we played card games under the blankets, whispering and laughing too loud. Around 10, someone knocked on the front door. We all froze. Lucas frowned. Who would come this late? His parents were upstairs getting ready for bed, so he went to the door himself. Through the curtain on the small window, I saw him pause. Then he opened the door just a crack. When he came back, he said, "It's my cousin, Evan. He's early. My parents said he could sleep over tomorrow, but I guess he came tonight." None of us thought much of it. We greeted Evan when he stepped in. He was pale, thin, and quiet. He didn't bring a sleeping bag, just sat down with us in the fort like he belonged. That was the first strange thing. At first, it was fine. We played more games, told jokes, shared candy. Evan didn't talk much, but when he did, it was in this flat voice, like every word took effort. He laughed once, but it sounded forced, almost like he was copying us. At midnight, Lucas's mom came down to say goodnight. She smiled at all of us and counted. 1, 2, 3, then she stopped. Her eyes narrowed. "Lucas? Who's that?" Lucas looked confused. "That's Evan. Remember? You said he could stay." His mom blinked. "Honey, Evan isn't coming until tomorrow, and he's bringing his parents with him." The room went silent. We all turned to look at where Evan had been sitting. The spot was empty. At first, we thought he had just gone to the bathroom. We searched the house top to bottom, the hallway, the bedrooms, the kitchen. Nothing. His shoes weren't by the door. No one had seen him leave. Lucas's dad even stepped outside with a flashlight, checking the yard. The night was still. No footprints in the damp grass. "He probably snuck out as a joke," his dad said, though his voice sounded strained. "Go to bed, boys. It's late." We tried. We really did. We crawled back into the fort, whispering about what had just happened. Maybe Lucas's parents were playing a trick. Maybe one of us had imagined him and the others had gone along with it. But there was no denying the candy wrappers by a spot, or the fact that 5 cups of soda had been poured, not 4. I barely slept. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Around 3 in the morning, I opened my eyes to find the fort glowing faintly blue. The TV was on, but the remote was still on the floor by Lucas's hand. The screen flickered with static. In the glow, I saw a figure sitting on the couch, just outside the blankets. It was Evan. He turned his head toward me slowly. His face was pale, his eyes darker than before. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Then the TV snapped off, plunging the room back into darkness. When Lucas stirred and turned on the lamp, the couch was empty. In the morning, we all looked exhausted. None of us wanted to talk about what had happened, but the tension hung over us like a heavy blanket. Lucas's parents asked if everything was okay. We nodded quickly, too scared to say anything. But before I left, I checked the living room one last time. On the coffee table, beside the pile of empty cups, was a fifth cup. It was half full of soda, and on the side of it, drawn in condensation, was a single word written with a fingertip. Stay. I never went back for another sleepover at Lucas's house, because sometimes when you think you know who's in the room with you, you don't. And I still wonder, if his mom hadn't counted us that night, would Evan have ever left at all?